Welcome. Today, we're talking about karma, but maybe not in the way you're used to thinking about it. We're going to look at it as a really practical tool we can use to understand and, more importantly, change the repeating patterns in our lives, all based on the work of Florence Scovel Shinn. So, have you ever had that feeling like you're just stuck in the same loop? You know the one. Maybe it's the same exact conflict with a coworker, the same misunderstanding that keeps popping up in a relationship, or that one frustrating habit you just can't seem to kick. It can feel like you're completely trapped. But what if that loop isn't random at all? What if there's a predictable, almost mechanical process behind it? And that brings us to our first big idea here, the pattern of return. This is where we look at karma not as some kind of cosmic punishment, but as a simple, observable feedback system that's shaping our experience every single day. Florence Scovel Shinn had this brilliant way of putting it. She said that life is a game of boomerangs. The idea is so simple, but it's also incredibly powerful. Whatever you send out into the world, your thoughts, your words, your actions, it all circles back to you. It's a universal law. If you send out judgment, well, you're going to run into more judgment. If you send out goodwill, you'll find that goodwill comes back to you. The universe, in her view, is literally just a mirror. Now, what's so cool about this is that Shinn's idea, which is a century old, isn't just some spiritual concept floating out there. It's a pattern that shows up everywhere. In psychology, they call it the norm of reciprocity, that deep-seated instinct we all have to return favors and behaviors. We also see it in cognitive reappraisal, which is just a fancy way of saying that when you change your inner story, you change your outer reality. And of course, ancient wisdom traditions have always talked about this as sowing and reaping. So karma isn't some far-out thing. It's a real, observable part of how life works. Okay, so if this feedback loop is so predictable, why do we get stuck in the negative ones so often? Well, that leads us right into the main culprit, what we can call the resentment trap. It's that common but really destructive habit of holding on to grievances and keeping score. Shinn put it perfectly, man receives only that which he gives. So when we're holding on to resentment or anger or that feeling of injustice, what are we really doing? We're actively sowing seeds of that exact same negative energy. By keeping score, we're sending out a boomerang of bitterness that has no choice but to come back, which just strengthens the very pattern we say we want to escape. And Shinn gives this amazing example of just how direct this feedback can be. She tells a story about a woman who was at dinner and snapped at her aunt saying something like, "No more talk, I just want to eat in peace." Well, the very next day, this woman is at a lunch trying to impress someone, and that person turns to her and says the exact same words back. She immediately recognized her own boomerang coming back to her. The more aware we get, the faster that feedback loop seems to work. So that's the big question, right? How do you stop a negative boomerang that's already flying back at you? Shinn's answer is kind of surprising. You don't fight it. You rise above it. She introduces the law of forgiveness as a kind of psychological reset button. And it's not about saying what happened was okay. It's about neutralizing that karmic energy and breaking the cycle, so you're free from having to live through it again. And that's the perfect lead-in to our next section, the law of new action. See, it's not enough to just stop the negative pattern. To really, truly change your experience, you have to proactively start creating a positive one. The best way to think about this is like you're a gardener. You can't just wish the weeds away, right? You have to consciously pull them out. And then, and this is the most important part, you have to plant something new in their place. You can't just erase a bad habit or a negative thought pattern. You have to consciously replace it by planting new seeds of thought, word, and action. And what's fascinating is that modern behavioral science actually shows us exactly how this sowing new seeds thing works. It's called the habit loop. There's a cue, a trigger, that leads to your response, which gives you some kind of reward. Every single time we complete this loop, we're strengthening a neural pathway in our brain, making that response more and more automatic. This is how we literally build the reality we experience every day. Okay, so let's get really practical with this. How does this actually apply in our day-to-day lives? We're going to look at 3 key areas where we can start changing the seeds we sow. Let's start with work. Got that one difficult colleague? Instead of stewing in frustration, you can consciously send out thoughts of goodwill. That shift in your energy can change the entire dynamic. Or in relationships, after an argument, making what researchers call a repair attempt, a little joke, a kind touch, a simple apology, that's a powerful act of forgiveness that resets the whole vibe. And with habits, If you focus on building just one keystone habit, like making your bed every morning, it can shift your sense of self and create this cascade of positive boomerangs all day long. So, how do we make this a daily practice? It doesn't have to be this big, complicated thing. Here's a super simple exercise, a daily reset you can use to start clearing the slate today. First, just name it. Bring to mind one person or situation that still carries that negative charge for you. Second, release it. You can silently use Shinn's affirmation. I call on the law of forgiveness. I am under grace, not law. This is just you declaring your intention to step out of that cycle. And finally, plant a new seed. Deliberately choose one positive thought or action to put in its place, no matter how small it seems. Okay, so let's just quickly recap the three biggest ideas from all this. First, karma is a feedback loop, not a punishment. It's a mirror. Second, holding on to resentment is what reinforces those negative cycles. Forgiveness is what breaks them. And third, you are always at a point of choice. You can always plant new seeds to create a new harvest. And that really brings us to the most important question of all, doesn't it? Because this isn't just theory, it's a daily practice. It's about what you choose to do right now. So think about it for a second. What is one seed of kindness or goodwill or just positive action that you can consciously choose to plant today? If this whole idea of consciously shaping your experience resonated with you, you'll definitely want to check out our next explainer on the law of non-resistance. You can find the entire series on this topic in our playlist. Thanks for watching.